put or to inflict any harm on the Egyptian or the Egyptian border or the Egyptian sovereignty. But again, it's a problem need to be solved for the Palestinians and Palestine. The people in Gaza really look to Egypt as a rescuer, as a party that really can put a good pressure to solve and get a solution to their problems.
Yeah, maybe the best solution would be if the border crossings and restrictions are eased. And we also hear that Israel might lift the fuel embargo or the rationing of fuel after the weekend. Dr. Maher Sabra from Gaza, who's a writer and political analyst, I'd like to thank you very much for joining our program. And Baria Alamuddin, with us from London, she's going to continue with us for the second part of the program. So we're going to have a break and we'll be back. A dramatic rise in the worldwide cost of food is provoking riots throughout the Third World, where millions more of the world's most vulnerable people are facing starvation as food shortages grow and great general and prices of commodities soar. It threatens to become the biggest crisis of the 21st century. This week, crowds of hungry demonstrators in Haiti stormed the presidential palace in the capital Port-au-Prince in protests over food prices. And a crisis gripped the Philippines as massive queues formed to buy rice from government stocks. There have been riots in Niger, Senegal, Cameroon, and Burkina Faso, and protests in Mauritania, Ivory Coast, Egypt, and Morocco. Mexico has had tortilla riots, and in Yemen, children have marched to draw attention to their hunger. The United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization says rising prices have triggered a food crisis in 36 countries. The hike in prices means the World Food Programme is cutting food handouts, rationings, to some 73 million people in 78 countries. The threat of malnutrition on a massive scale is looming. We're going to watch a report, and when we come back, we'll discuss this issue with our guest from London, Baria Alamuddin, and inshallah, we'll be joined by Dr. Jamal Abdel Jawad from Cairo, Egypt. A report, and we'll be back.
On account of the global rapid rise in stable food prices over the past 3 years, more than 100 million people in poor countries risk falling back into misery. This is what has come in the World Bank latest report. Thus, the World Bank is raising alarm and proposing immediate intervention and a long-term plan to foster agricultural production.
What's going on, it's a more global issue, it's not local issue, but if you are talking about a hard situation like Palestine, we will face more problems around poverty in the coming years, more than what we have now. And it's really increased in a very, very dramatical way.
Over the past year, the prices of many basic foods have risen much faster than incomes have, with the price of corn going up 31%, while rice went up 74%, soya increased 87%, and wheat prices went up a whopping 130%. The increases in the prices for the stuff have sparked violent protests in many countries, and it is feared that these can only increase and become more violent, since the run-up in prices does not appear to be stopping. Moreover, in recent months, large rice exporters like India and China have stopped their sales abroad.
In the past, we used to buy 3 loaves of bread for 1 shekel. Then the price was raised, so they become 2 in 1 shekel. Nowadays, we buy 1 loaf with 1 shekel. All prices are rising up, and everything has become expensive. More than that, the Israeli government is chasing us by its taxes. In Jerusalem, there is an exorbitant growth of prices. The poor are unable now of buying wheat or rice, or even to take local transportation, because the prices have raised to double and even triple, because car fuel price today at $150 per 1 liter.
There is severe rise in prices. Everything become more expensive. The wheat, the rice, the oil, and the vegetables. It's impossible now for me to buy the things that I used to buy in the past with the same amount of money.
As usual, it's the people, especially in the countries which suffer political instability, that are affected mostly when surplus turns to scarcity. So if food prices go up more than it already have, then many of these people will go hungry, and hundreds of thousands of people will be starving.
Everyone beside the Mauritians are talking about a new expected war. They say that this kind of severe increase in the prices always precede wars.
The Palestinian reports shows that the Palestinian people are 75% under poverty, and this is maybe the highest number in the world. But which we are seeing in all the media, televisions, and etc. It's showing that in Africa and other countries, it's a miserable situation there. And this is really, it's concerning all over the world. But at the same time, we are seeing that there is a big war is going in the world, like Iraqi war.
In recent years, the concerns over oil prices, energy security and the climate change have prompted governments to encourage the use of biofuels, but this has led to increased demand for biofuel raw materials, such as wheat, soy, corn and palm oil, which increased competition for the cropland.
It's important that they really believe on strategies that gives the communities the empowerment and help them to generate their income and build kind of development projects in order to increase the income of the poor. And this can be done by the international community.
The World Bank has endorsed a call by its president, Robert Zulik, demanding an immediate international action to deal with the effects of rapidly rising food prices and to help increase food productivity in low-income countries. Thus, the World Bank has come up with what it calls a new plan for easing the crisis confronting tens of millions of people around the world. The plan calls for richer nations to contribute $5 million to ease the burden. If food inflation keeps accelerating at its current rate, then the consequences will be terrible. As for learning from the past, all kinds of social unrest had ended into wars. Thus, many political views assume that these pressures could lead into Third World War. For Political Agenda, this is Mirvat Abu Saud, Jerusalem.
Of course, the Palestinians feel the bite much more than many other people because of the occupation, the siege in Gaza, for example, and the price hike in commodities worldwide. Of course, people in conflict areas like Iraq feel the same. But in other places, there have been angry protests. In Haiti, for example, there were angry over food prices, which led them to violent riots in which at least 5 people were killed. The country's parliament also fired the prime minister. In Egypt, there were food prices have doubled. Rioters burnt cars, smashed windows, and clashed with police in Al-Mahal al-Kubra, a governorate in Egypt. Baria Alamuddin in London, protesters seem to blame their governments for failing to anticipate the crisis, and they've started to question many questions. Maybe for the first time they're asking questions like where's the fiscal budget, the expenditure, and they accuse the governments of corruption. Where could this lead people in countries that suffer the food prices and the hunger?
Yes, first allow me to just mention one figure which is staggering really, that 70% of the world's poor are women. And this is really appalling, and it's a very, very sad fact of life. Mm-hmm. As far as your question is concerned, I think it is normal when where there is conflict, as you mentioned, in Gaza or in Iraq, that poverty follows. in such countries like Haiti or other areas that you mentioned, countries, usually poverty is blamed on bad governance, on lack of transparency, sometimes on corruption. And I think, for example, if you take Haiti, you would recognize that it's a country that had suffered from all what I have mentioned. But the crisis these days, as far as the food is concerned, is not only linked to these factors. I think it's linked to other factors, as we know. Some of these factors is the environment, and we all know that the price of wheat has hit the roof because of lack of rain in countries like Australia or other parts of the world
and
that
the production of
produce a lot of
biofuel
wheat.
as well.
Also the price of yes, absolutely, absolutely. So there are many factors here that link and increase the poverty. But the food riots that you rightly mentioned in all these areas are also in a basket of reasons, if you like. Some of them are the ones I mentioned. Some of them are the economic situation in the world and the environment. And also, it's the lack of anticipation by these governments that this crisis was looming. Everybody knew that we are going to get what we are getting. Mm-hmm. So it is sad that such governments did not actually plan, especially for the poor societies. It's very unfortunate that we find that the poor are getting poorer and the rich are getting richer, and the middle class is almost evaporating in many communities.
Yes, indeed. Now, the United Nations has called on the international community to take urgent action against the global food crisis, warning that escalating prices could undo years of progress in poverty alleviation. Mr. Ban Ki-moon, the United Nations Secretary General, said a concerted move would avoid the larger political and security implications of this growing crisis. Now, Baria, if you're still with me, what could the political and security implications be, according to Ban Ki-moon? What could we expect politically and in the security field worldwide?
Yes, yes. Yes. Of course, he's talking about unrest. He's talking about, I mean, we all know, for example, if you talk about the Philippines, and I've interviewed the President, Gloria Macapagal Arroyo, she's in trouble. She has riots against her, yes, in the Philippines. And she's been accused of corruption, she and her husband. And also now lately she has been accused that she is selling the rice to neighboring Vietnam, for example. And now she had to stop these measures. It is unfortunate that poverty, a lack of stability, political unrest are all as well linked together. There is nothing more biting than when you have your child or yourself asleep without food. Food is different. People cannot really sustain themselves. Sometimes it's even linked to death. It's linked to ill health. It's linked to abuse of human rights. All these things. So this is why it is not really foreign to political unrest. Okay. And I think Ban Ki-moon must be worried about such an unrest spreading across the world.
Well, let me take the same question to Dr. Jamal Abdel Jawad, who joins us from Cairo, Egypt. He's from the Institute of Political and Strategic Studies. Good evening, Dr. Abdel Jawad. And let me take the same question to you. The United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon warned of political and security implications of the food crisis. Well, what's the situation like in Egypt, and is this one of the things Egypt is worried about?
Yes, definitely, because with the shortage of food and the rise in the prices of food, you heard here the people's ability to get the basic needs, and basic needs is what keeps people going. In fact, if people can be patient and show some tolerance towards lower standards of living, or delay a little bit, improving their housing or something like that. But when it comes to food, things are really serious, and we could see that we have seen that in Egypt and in other countries, that the shortage of food has caused or triggered riots or protests that kind of unusual, in fact, unusual in the case of Egypt, and also the level of protest that we have seen in Haiti and in other countries, also unusual in those countries. If order is to collapse in a state, and the state is the building block